Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at one of the highest rated players on one of the best teams on Inferno right now, which is actually Eternal Fire. While they may not have the highest win rate in the last 3 months, on the CT side of Inferno specifically, they are a team that very much prefer to pick the map. And honestly, if we sort it by win rate, we see that this is the 6th highest win rate team on the map right now in top 30, being quite close to some of the other teams here. And Eternal Fire are a team that stand out quite a bit by having the amount of maps that they've played. They're a team that very much prefer Inferno, and it's one of their main maps, if not the main map that they have. And one of the biggest reasons why I think they're so good on the CT side specifically is that they have this man right here, who we can see is named XANTARES. Now XANTARES is obviously a very well-known name, one of the best pure riflers or maybe aimers of all time in CSGO at the very least. And his Inferno level is very high. So what we can see if we're looking at this is that this is the best Inferno CT side players. And while XANTARES is not the highest, we have players like Decent with a crazy rating, we can actually see that all the players above XANTARES have a very low amount of maps and very low amount of rounds played. So actually looking at the amount of sheer output that XANTARES has, over 121 rounds in 11 games, leads to show that there's a lot that XANTARES is doing on this map that makes it very interesting to watch what he does specifically. The one big thing that we're going to be thinking about when we're looking at XANTARES play this map is that the way that him and Major play in the B-bomb side is not something that every team does. So the numbers that XANTARES put out may be quite a bit higher than you would expect because of the way that him and Major is playing. So basically, XANTARES is always set up. That's the way that they're setting up this B-bomb site. So that means that in examples like this, in the early round, XANTARES is the supportive player setting up Major theoretically, but what it really means is that Major is playing the very risky role of being out top car, while the T's are very viable to do a fast peek or play or full take. And then later on being able to be the player set up. We can see the same in this round where this time XANTARES actually starts out top car here as he's holding the duels here. And in this instance they're having this coffin set up with Major being able to have flashes and mollies and smokes to support XANTARES. And that's actually when XANTARES decides to play out top car here, when he is being set up early for these fights. And in this round as well, in the same game against Falcons, we can see the same setup being ran. We're starting off with the Major holding flashes for XANTARES, starting to close that wall. And as the round transitions into the later stages, XANTARES becomes more of this rotating piece once again, being able to find himself in positions towards A quite often, and also being in positions on B that are not very high-risk positions. Another big thing about XANTARES' game, which is actually quite expected if you think about him as a player, is that he's very much daring to take duels. He's very daring to take straight up aim duels like this, because for him 50-50 duels are not 50-50, they're favored for him. And this playstyle is actually quite useful for the way that Eternal Fire are playing on the B-bomb side, because it allows them to save util to a bigger extent than normally, because XANTARES is taking the duel on them and actually not being scared of the T searching into him, because he's just gonna peek into them and win the duel if they come. What we also can see once again on the topic of being set up early is that XANTARES is also quite set up in the mid to late round. As they're going into setups on the late round, XANTARES very often being the baiting piece, like in rounds like this, where he's just going to swoop in here and get the final kill. And realistically, if Ikadeon gets a 1, XANTARES is going to get a double kill there. And this is something we can see quite often, is that Major is basically being a decoy even in the late round, with taking the space, taking the fights, taking the attention of the T's, as XANTARES can clean up the round. And around like this, we can see once again the same thing about XANTARES having this very confident playing style, as he just dares to walk through the smoke, despite being a 5v4 and the CT's actually having quite a few nades left on the B-bomb side. This is theoretically the wrong play, but for a player like XANTARES, who has a very confidence-based style, maybe these types of plays are very necessary and quite often give a good result for XANTARES and for his team. Something that Eternal Fire actually do quite a couple of times every now and then is that after they've pressured this B control, instead of opting to stay down the car or down B fully, they opt to go into this late round setup with over on their sandbags, which is quite common in the pro scene nowadays. But we can see in an example like this that it's a complete shutdown on the B bomb side, as Major gets 3 kills in this instance. XANTARES cleans up the last kill into simple. And as said, Santares is also set up in these late round situations. In this late round here, where they are expecting a B hit and Vicadia has rotated over and got them boosted up, Santares is, despite being not the guy boosted up, realistically the guy most set up actually for success here. Almost spamming down third. Santares gets boosted up once again. Now, unfortunately, in this case, he doesn't get that many kills. But hey, he is definitely the player that's set up in this round to get the kills. Sometimes the confidence-based style that Santares has doesn't yield results. In rounds like this, he just loses the duel against Simple. One big thing that Eternal Fire do is that they almost always have a 3B support. Now this is Vicadia, who's their A rotator, is that he's either starting out throwing this early B smoke from A, which lands at the bottom of Banana, which allows Santares and Major to keep one extra smoke, which I can use for later in the round, which is very important in the bomb site that you have these nades. Now one of the benefits of Vicadia starting B or doing this smoke from spawn is that there's an extra smoke being kept on Eternal Fire, and they can use this smoke to basically ensure that they have one smoke late round for this entry area, and they have one more smoke that they can play with, for example using it for this top car retake nade set that Santares throws quite regularly for the Eternal Fire side, which blocks off the top of the car area fully, and they cannot boost over the smoke, they cannot stand outside the car. And this is something they use to clear out the top car or just fake it in instances like this. And if Vicadia is not throwing the early B smoke, he's going to be starting over at the B bomb site in instances like this, where they're doing a 3B start, which they can do in a couple of different ways, but typically revolving around Vicadia using his early nade sets, using a smoke down and a molly close, which allows the nade set to be saved on the B bomb site. And over as well on the topic of Santares being set up early to not play the annoying position, which is what Major is doing here, is that if the T's are doing something like the Mongols are doing here, with a really hard forcing B, right? Using a molly for sandbags, a molly for fallen, flashes up. This guy is fighting in the trenches in this round. And he is not allowed to have fun, because he tried to have fun. He tried to play out here and big duels, but he's just getting destroyed by Sensu. Well, they are not allowing Santares to have to go through these traumatic experiences, so they're allowing him to play this passive defensive position early where he can bait the fuck out of Major, if we say it in a very expressive way. And this actually allows him to always be able to be in the good position where he can get the multi-kills in the mid to late round. And this type of 3B start that we just saw is something that's quite commonly done, as said, if Vicadia is not throwing this early B smoke. They can do it in a couple of different ways, instances like this, where Santares is starting out from the coffin side, or with Santares starting out from the pool side, and using, in this instance, the top car smoke from Major, which we've shown just now, to retake the top car area. And basically using Vicadia as an asset on the B bomb side to always have a third nade set that they can utilize. And again here we can see a heavy B start, in this case even having a 4B start, where they're using both of the A players, that's not the Opera in this instance, on the B bomb side early to use nades or to drop nades to basically force the T's to think that you have no nades left, and then you can have two more nade sets that you can use. It's very difficult for the T's. They are trying to do a round to handle this. And once again, Major is getting completely destroyed playing on this B bomb side because he's not allowed to have fun, and that's not the system that Eternal Fire have. Major is not permitted to have fun. Instead, you're setting up players like Vicadia in this instance, who in this case don't get anything, or Santares, who in this case don't get anything. Maybe Major is slapping his head saying, fuck man, I really should have baited these guys. And here we see once again this 4B start with the players, in this case dropping nades for the B bomb site. There are two nade sets at the disposal for the B players here. Well, not full nade sets in this instance, they're keeping the smoke and molly on Calyx, but there are two AGs and one nade set here with smoke, molly and flash. This allows the players to keep their nades longer, as said, and using the top car nades that they're using quite commonly. Once again, in instances like this, we also see this confidence-based style from Santares sometimes being punished. He's taking these duels without using his util, but he's jiggling that duel, actually delaying the smoke for a solid 10-15 seconds now. In a run like this, maybe it wasn't necessary, but there's a lot of moves left on the 25 side. But that's the way Santares likes to play, is that he's taking these duels and he's not really scared to do that. One thing that Santares likes to do is that in this instance where they are 3B, while he is starting defensive and being the supportive element, when the threat of an early push or a rush is gone, Santares is more than accepting to just and stay out sandbags and have Major be the supportive element. So as said, the way that Eternal Fire are playing, Major is constantly setting up Santares through all these stages of the round. In the early round, Santares is the supportive element. As we transition into the late round, Santares becomes more of the star player on the B-bomb side, having the flash support by Major, sometimes rotating when he wants to rotate to get to the action, sometimes staying when he opts to become the wall on the B-bomb side. And if you're enjoying this video so far, I would love for you guys to check out the other content that I've uploaded on this channel, and perhaps subscribe to the channel to not miss future uploads like this, where I'm analyzing players or teams or other aspects of CS. Thank you so much, and back to the video at hand. However, something that might come as a bit of a surprise that the keen among you might have actually noticed is that there's some interesting detail in the way that Eternal Fire are using this Molotov that Santares is throwing right now on your screen. Is that instead of attempting to throw a molly that gets the broom area, or a molly that attempts to get the logs and the broom area, Eternal Fire constantly throw a molly that exclusively gets the logs. Now, why would you do this? Now, if you ask me, I think there's a difference between team and team. I think a lot of different teams are throwing this molly in a lot of different ways to try and get different effects from it. The way the Eternal Fire are using it, they're consistently able to block off the right side of B. So when they're facing this, they know that the only threats is if they're in front of the smoke or if they're in this broom area. With this being completely blocked off at all times, they never have to fear it. And this allows them to bounce AGs for this area rather than bouncing AGs for this area. That's a small detail, but it's something interesting in the way that they're setting up, the way that they're contesting Deep Banana. Another interesting detail is that, once again, as we spoke about with how Santares is being set up in the late round, is that Major is the player inside of the site in these late round scenarios. Santares is either City or he is Ruins. Now, why is he this? Because the site guy is always going to be the guy getting first contact, and Santares being able to play off of Major in instances like this, where Santares is ready to swing out of the smoke as Major gets the distraction. So as Major gets the attention of KD and Sound, Santares swings out and gets an easy double kill. What some of you might have also noticed is that Eternal Fire are not taking Deep Banana fast. And an interesting thing is that in neither of these 3 games that we're analyzed today, there is not a singular round when Eternal Fire are taking Banana fast. Now, why is this the case? In general, actually, there are very few rounds where they're even extending beyond the top car area with this type of top car nade set. Now, why is this the case, you might be asking? Well, the fact of the matter is that the meta looks quite different in the pro scene compared to different levels of the game. In your pugs or in the lower level of the game, a lot of the matches and the game plan is going to be for the CTs to force this Deep Banana control and squeeze the T's of the map control. In the pro scene, as the meta currently stands with the way the Molotovs work and with the way that the HE break mechanic works, and just the way that the game is being played at the tier 1 level, teams are not contesting Deep Banana quite often. Now, of course, there are usually specific rounds that teams have where they are actually taking Deep Banana fast, but Eternal Fire opt to not use this type of playstyle, relying on their late round holds on the B-bomb side, just surviving off of the 3B, the third B start or the nades that Vicaria used for them early. But that is a big thing that you need to understand when you're looking at a play like Santares and trying to copy the things he's doing. You need to understand that, simply put, the teams that Eternal Fire are playing and the way that the teams are playing is not something that's always replicable in your facing matches or in your matchmaking matches or in your ESA matches. Because I can speak from experience and say that a lot of teams, even at the level of Advanced, are not playing anywhere near the way the teams are playing in the tier 1 scene. So you need to understand that there is differences in how people play depending on the level of play. So if we were to summarize a little bit about what makes Santares such a good player on Inferno, it's actually a multitude of different factors. The most obvious one is that Santares has very good aim and utilizes it in a very good way in the way that he plays. Not specific to Inferno, in general on different maps, his playstyle is very, very confidence-based, daring to take duels, and he has an amazing mechanical skill, which he utilizes in game. And how he's using this mechanical skill on the B-bomb side is that it allows him and Major to actually keep a lot more utility than they would otherwise be able to have, by not always throwing the grenades, rather using the aim instead. It's also the fact that in the early, in the mid round, in the late round, Santares is constantly set up on this B-bomb side by Major, who is just using himself to make Santares into a multi-kill demon. They're also doing small details that are quite interesting, utilizing fun setups like the top car setup where they're doubling sandbags. They are quite commonly using the retake nades for the top car, which is something that could be copied into your game despite not being on the tier 1 level. And they are very, very rarely pushing out to the deep banana control, putting a lot of faith into the late round side hold of XANTARES and Major. No team in the world has XANTARES on their team, and especially not the guys that are watching this video, unfortunately. Despite how good you may be thinking you are, you're not really XANTARES. But there are different ways that you can be utilizing your players and your pieces, and the way the Eternal Fire are using XANTARES in particular is quite interesting from an IGL perspective of how to set up players to their strengths. Not constricting XANTARES to be the B supporter, constantly setting up Major, they're rather using that system only for the start of the round when this hard aggression and dangerous duels need to be taken, and XANTARES being set up afterwards. So with all of that said, XANTARES is currently one of the best players on Inferno, especially on the B-bomb sites, and someone that I recommend you to be watching if you are going to be playing on the B-bomb side in your team or in your pugs. And there's a lot of interesting things that you can copy from the way that he and Major play that are not directly related to his individual skill. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all have a wonderful day. And I just noticed that we reached 500 subscribers on the channel, so thank you so much for that, and I hope that we will be able to reach larger milestone in the future. But until then, new content aiming to be released in the upcoming weeks. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.